Welcome back to our third session of the day. For those who are interested to know a little bit more about Utah, hello? Okay, I think it was a tech problem. For those who are interested and know a little bit more about what does it take to launch a bot in a complex environment, then this session is for you. Joachim Jonkers, our CPO at Chatlayer, will tell us more about the do's and don'ts to implement chatbots in large enterprises. Welcome, JJ.
Hey, Claudia, thank you.
How are you today?
Doing very well, and excited to talk to you all about this today.
Perfect. So then over to you, JJ.
Great. Let me just get everything up and running here. I'll share my screen. Just a sec. All right, that should be good to go. Perfect. So thanks for being here, everyone. I want to talk to you today, just like Claudia said, about chatbots for enterprises. A lot of the advice that we get about chatbots are really for getting started with it, learning about it. But oftentimes in bigger companies, the needs for starting something new like this are very different, and the challenges are really interesting as well. So I wanted to kind of zoom in on that part particularly and talk to you about what is possible there and how to best approach a situation like this. So who am I? I'm JJ or Joachim, call me whatever you like. I have a background in philosophy, which is a little bit strange maybe in our industry, but I really like it. I joined Chatlayer back in 2018. At the time, we were still a very small startup, just 5, 6 people, working on some really cool tech, really cool product with some really cool customers. But of course, since then, a lot has changed, and we've grown tremendously, both in the company, now being a part of Sinch, but also in terms of our customer base and our global outroll. But actually, the first customers that I interacted with in 2018 were already enterprises, right? So we have been working with enterprises since the very start, which means that our platform is really optimized for those kind of companies, and we have a lot of insights into how to do this the best way as an enterprise. And my job today is leading the Chatlayer product teams. They're amazing teams of amazing people working on amazing things. So it's very exciting to be a part of that. Right. So let's tell a story here, right? So you're working for an enterprise. You would like to build a bot. You've listened to all the great stories that we had that Rick and Ivan shared. You're like, I really see the value. I've listened to all of the benefits. I'm convinced that it would be super valuable for my business. What now? What's the next step? And we're going to tell the story of Eve. And Eve is a customer experience manager in a big enterprise. And Eve leads a team of support engineers and a few other people that are helping her give the customers the best experience possible, mostly on the service side. And the first thing she does is she goes to Steve, stakeholder Steve. And stakeholder Steve tells her a story about a failed bot project that happened like 5 years ago. They tried something out, but the customers hated the bot a lot. It was on the website, and basically all the bot ever said was, sorry, I didn't understand, or would you like to subscribe to our newsletter, right? So it was a horrible experience for customers. Nobody liked it, and they just it basically ruined the image of bots within the company. So she's like, all right, yeah, that's interesting. Let's move on, right? So she goes to her team. Her team is like, seriously, chatbots? I mean, come on, we've all had these super bad experiences with chatbots. There's a lot of prejudice in that team about how bots are built and how they're not useful at all, just like Ivan told you about in the previous session. The team doesn't really have the skills to build something like that. They're a bit uncertain about that as well. They already have a ton of work. So why prioritize this? There's a lot of friction there as well. So she's like, okay, fine, this is becoming a bit harder, but let's see what we have next. So Eve goes to legal, and legal tells her, okay, so you want to build a chatbot. You will need to have a new sub processor, and the bot will process some personal data, which is always a tricky thing in a big enterprise, right? To deal with that sort of sensitive stuff. So, it's not easy. How can we do this? Is the best way to do this? Wouldn't it be easier if we just, would not do it, or maybe do something else that we already have? Lots of questions from there as well. And then finally, Eve goes to IT security. They're like, seriously, you want to buy a SaaS tool? We like to have most of the things actually on premise, so we have better control of the environments. There's some potential for data breaches and stuff. Potential for outages, right? With the WhatsApp outage right now, it's not uncommon that something like that happens. So lots of questions from their side as well. But Eve, being the good customer experience manager that she is, doesn't give up. She's like, I can do this. I want to really make sure that the customers have that good experience, to really capture all of those values that you can get out of a bot. So this is what she responds to all of these people, right? So she goes to stakeholder Steve, and she tells him, no, this is, we're starting to use a new technology, right? New technology that allows for a better bot with better experiences. But also really important is, we're thinking better about the scope. We're making a plan for a project that will increase the chance of success that we have with this project. Next, she goes to her team and she tells them, well, look at this as a new opportunity as well, right? Knowing how to build a bot is a really useful skill to have in this decade of technology. And I know you have a lot of work right now, but this bot is actually meant to reduce the workload, especially on the repetitive tasks over time. So this could help in that. And she goes to legal, and she tells the lawyers, well, actually, we can find ways to mitigate the risks that we have with the bot, and making sure that the right vendor is chosen that can actually address these important concerns that you have today. Let me just close this curtain real quickly. That's better. And then she goes to IT security, and IT security, she tells about, like, okay, but you can, we will select a vendor that allows for pen testing. You can actually go in and figure out if this is actually a secure platform or not, to make sure that it's a certified vendor, right? So all of these parties that have addressed their concerns early on in the process, there's actually a good answer to give those. But what is essential here is that innovation is hard. Like, if you're trying to do something new, it will 100% certainty get some friction, because if it was easy, somebody would have done it already, right? So whatever happens, whichever way of innovation you do, if it's bots or something else, it's going to be hard. That's by definition the case. And this is especially true in an enterprise, which are companies that are often very large, where there's a lot of existing processes in place that make it harder to start with something new like this. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It's actually even more important, because the potential of doing something like this in an enterprise is even larger than in a smaller company. So it's a great kind of way to start with this innovation, to really look at it as, okay, so you will get these hard questions, and you will have to spend time with all of these different stakeholders to kind of make sure that everybody understands why we're doing this. But the benefits could be really great as well. So where do you start, right? You want to build that bot, you want to build in an enterprise. What is the first thing to do? Actually, the first thing to think about is the bot scope and goals. I briefly mentioned that as well. Even I talked a little bit about it too, but it's super crucial. So basically, it's an answer to the question: who will use the bot, right? Who is the target audience? What problem does it solve? I'm not just creating a bot because it's fun and I like building a nice chatbot. It's actually meant to solve a specific problem that customers have. And how will I measure success, right? So what does success look like? how will I see if this bot is actually contributing to what I'm trying to achieve as a business, right? How does this bot contribute to the overall goals that I have as a company? So that's the first big step. Second big step is choosing the right platform and partner. There's a bunch of bot platforms out there, right? And they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, kind of depending on what you need as a company, what is right for you. The same goes for partners, right? Do you need somebody to give you in-depth training? Do you need somebody that can maybe build parts of the bot for you? Selecting the right partners and platforms to go with that is super crucial. So how do you make that right selection? Well, the crucial thing is to really look into your company and look into how complex is my business. Can I start with something that's like super simple? That's just like a very basic thing. But that really should go along with the conversational ambition level that you have, right? In general, I would advise companies to start with something simple, but also think about where do I want to be with this in 2 years. If it's still a very simple thing that you're only, some very basic flows, then that's very different from if you're like, I'm going to start simple, but in 2 years' time, I want to have something that's really like a core part of my customer support strategy, for example. Legal and info security requirements, of course, also come into play. Some of the platforms will be able to address some of these, others will not. We'll dive a little bit deeper into those in a minute. And then expertise and training, right? So you want to find a company. This is true for all companies, but especially for enterprises that not only can give you the right tools to build a bot with a platform, but also give you the right insights to really make sure that you're getting the most out of your bot as possible. And sometimes training is required for this, and sometimes there's a deep dive that needs to be done into like a first version of the bot to kind of figure out, is this the right thing for me? And then finally, assembling the team, right? There's different roles, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into those in a second. Different roles that are out there for the bot building team. So there's the people actually working on the bot, but then there's also the stakeholders. So it's very important to kind of really map out your stakeholders and how they will be interacting with the bot and with the bot team. The roles themselves, there are four major types. So on the one hand, there's NLP design. So this is everything related to understanding your users and making sure that the bot can use the AI effectively to make sure that what the user is saying is well understood by the bot, but it's not as much about the answering part, right? Actually giving accurate responses. That's more the flow design and response design. So what are these two and how are they different? Basically, the flow design is, like what are the steps your users go through? What is that happy flow that Even talked about? How are the errors handled? Do a little bit of user testing and all of that. Whereas response design is really like the copy itself, right? The text that is actually said by the bot. What are the answers that are given? How do they match with the identity of the bot and the brand that I'm trying to display? And also, for example, internationalization, right? So translating your bot into different languages depending on in which country, for example, your bot is in. And then finally, on the backend integration side, there's making sure that you have the right channel, making sure that you can transfer the bot over to an agent, retrieving user data, and also saving that data gathered during that conversation. So these are four roles, right? So that's great, but I think it's a bit optimistic to say that okay, so we'll have a team of 4 people when we start with this project. For many enterprises, that's a big investment to make if you're not super certain about what you're actually going to get out of this. So instead, there's it's easier to kind of split up this whole story into 4 different phases. And we'll talk about these one by one. So the first phase is all about just dipping your toes in the water, right? It's about making sure that you can get something that's valuable as soon as possible. So the target that we typically tell enterprises to keep in mind is to have a live bot that actually talks to customers within 1 or 2 months after you start. Is it possible to get a bot live faster? Absolutely, right? You can. We have templates and all of those things that allow you to get a bot live in just a few minutes. But typically for enterprises, typically when they're just getting started with this, a good term to keep in mind is about 1 or 2 months, which allows you to get fast value pretty quickly. So who will be on that team? It's typically mostly one full stack conversation designer. So what does that mean? A full stack conversation designer? Essentially, it's somebody that combines the first three columns of this slide, right? So NLP, flow, and response design all kind of combined into one person. Backend integration is something that we'll save for later. Um, Typically, they will start with one single use case, focus on a limited audience, limited problem scope, just to be able to get live as soon as possible to really capture the value and take those learnings into future iterations of the bot. So as soon as you have that, you can go on to a second phase where you're kind of expanding the team, expanding the scope, and also expanding the value that you're getting out of this bot. So now you're talking about not just one person team, but more like multiple full stack conversation designers, and with a target to publish a new iteration, a new version of the bot every 2 to 4 weeks that always contains a little bit more functionality, a little bit more um, uh, value that you can deliver to your customers. What's a good target to have within that second phase is to have at least one of the, I would say, top 5 or top 10 use cases supported, right? So, for example, if you're building a bot that's meant to for customer support, it's meant to solve people's problems. Try in that second phase to have at least one of the top 5 questions that are out there handled by that bot. That will give you lots of insights and also helps kind of push this project towards other stakeholders inside of the company if they can see, okay, so this bot's actually able to handle a significant volume of questions and also really address a crucial part of what customers are talking about. This is also a good moment to start thinking about integrations, right? So to make sure that your bot is well connected, so that if you're asking a question, that the user can actually also dive into, or that the bot can dive into a database somewhere, for example, where they can retrieve data about a certain conversation. So let's say that somebody is asking a question about what is the limit for my credit card, what is the spending limit, then the bot can go and look up in a database somewhere, okay, so your spending limit is let's say 2,000 euros every month. The third stage, then things are really starting to get interesting. You're kind of letting go typically of that concept of these full stack conversation designers, and you're diving more into specialized roles, right? Specialized NLP designers, specialized conversation designers that are really focused on a particular part of building that bot and kind of get more expertise about a certain topic as well. You're also talking about deeper integration, right? So not just one integration, but really like using the bot to talk to multiple systems to get as many data as possible, to personalize the conversation as much as possible, and also to give the right knowledge and advice to people that are talking to the bot. Oftentimes, in the third phase, these bots are also rolled out to not just one channel, so like WhatsApp, for example, but to multiple channels, right? So we're not just only doing WhatsApp anymore, we're also doing maybe Facebook Messenger in the app, on the website, maybe even on your phone, right? Your voice channel as well, to really go more broadly and to capture more of the incoming requests from customers into the bot. And something that's kind of connected to that, maybe it's like a phase 3.5, is that some companies at this point consider the bot to be the primary entry point for every sort of question that happens on the business side, right? So this is for customer support, but could also be like sales questions, product selection, even marketing, right? The bot is the primary face of the company, and that goes a long way, right? A good example is the Kate bot, which KBC builds, KBC has determined that they're Kate first, right? So in every KBC office, you will see Kate plastered all over the walls, even though it's a physical, actual office. You still have the ability to talk to Kate in these offices, and that's their virtual assistant. So finally, in stage 4, now it's that's really when you're advanced in your rollout, where you have multiple teams working on different use cases within a larger bot, and a bot competence center that is serving multiple business lines. So what does that mean? That there's one kind of competence center of different people that are focusing a lot on different bots, but they can kind of help different departments within your bigger company to achieve their bot ambitions, and also train other people within other companies, etc. All right. So if we still have time, I would like to ask you all a question. What are some of the challenges that you have faced in a new bot project? So if you've started something new, especially in a bigger company, but could also be a small one, what are some of the challenges that you have faced? You can type your answers in the chat here. Claudia, I have one more slide, but do we still have the time, or should we immediately go to the Q&A?
We still have time, JJ. So I
Great.
think we will give time to the audience to answer your question, and
Yeah.
then we can go. We can keep going.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So let's discuss these answers that you gave us in the Q&A that's coming up in just a minute. There's one more slide that I'd like to talk about before we go to the Q&A. This is more like specific advice on things that we see a lot with RFPs, requests for proposals, that are coming in from the market. So we get, like a lot of these RFPs, and I've seen way too many than anybody should ever see in their lifetime. But that gives us the advantage of having a good understanding of what are the things that enterprises typically ask for when they're writing these, right? So, and it also helps if you're, in an enterprise and you're thinking about rolling something out like this in your company, then expect and prepare answers for these type of questions to come up, and make sure that you're asking potential vendors for those type of things as well, because they will be crucial to convince your stakeholders on the legal side, IT security side mostly, about these topics that they have. So one is deployment, right? So do you want a platform that is a SaaS platform that's on the public cloud, available for multiple customers at the same time, or do you want something that's on premise, that's installed in the basement somewhere on your servers? Of course, we have a strong preference for SaaS at Chatlayer. That's who we are. But and we're trying to convince as many companies as possible that that is the future, and the industry is going in that direction. But in some cases, there are companies that do really prefer that on-premise rollout. Next, product features, super important as well, to make sure that you have the right features in your product to support the bot handling sensitive data, right? Especially in Europe, these requirements are pretty strict, to make sure that you can delete data from the platform really easily, to mask data that is sensitive from the platform, so it cannot be accessed by the people in the platform, and even by the Chatlayer support team, for example. Then also, even though that data is masked, it's still very important to make sure that only the authorized people have access to the bot at the right time. To do that, you can integrate with your own single sign-on system, so you can basically log on with your Microsoft account, for example, and also making sure that you have only permission to do certain things within the bot, right? So, for example, we have this role where you can only change the copy of the bot, but you cannot change the NLP, for example, right? That's one of the roles that we do. And then finally, certificates, right? So a lot of these questions can be made much easier if a company can kind of provide a certificate that kind of proves, yeah, so we have processes for all of these things. It's all standardized, it's all documented somewhere. We're very transparent on that, and that's proven by the fact that we have this certificate here. Typical certificates that you will see in the industry are ISO 27001 and SOC 2 certificates. Other important things to keep in mind of are HIPAA and GDPR compliance. So GDPR, of course, very important in Europe. I don't think I have to explain. HIPAA is a United States act, basically, that is required for companies that are processing medical data. So if you're a medical company in the US, then you will definitely be aware of this one and have to deal with that one as well. So it's very important to make sure that the platform that you're choosing is compliant with that as well. And that's all from my side. Claudia, shall we go over to the questions?
Of course, JJ. Actually, I'm gonna read one for you that Gertina Hamstra has just asked. So, when you're talking about bots, JJ, do you specifically mean chatbots or also voice bots?
Good question. And hey, Gertina. This is really true for all bots, right? I think the method of building a voice bot and the method of building a chatbot within an enterprise are quite similar. Of course, there's different expertise that's required. There's a lot of different things that you have to be aware of when you're building a voice bot versus compared to building a chatbot. But the initial setup, like the scope of the bot and the security requirements, stuff like that, will in broad terms be quite similar. So in that sense, it's a lot of these lessons can be duplicated for both types of projects. And in fact, what I recommend is, if you're thinking about, oh, should I do a chatbot or a voice bot, it's always good to kind of think, maybe we can start somewhere that's simple, whether that's a voice or a chatbot, and kind of grow over time into multiple channels, right? To have a bot that's used at the same time, both for voice and for chat, to have that hybrid. That's really strong.
Perfect. You can still keep asking questions. I am not sure if this one actually is an answer to the question that you asked, JJ, of what are some of the challenges you have faced in a new bot project. But a couple of people said feedback never actually fixed conversations. Not exactly what that means. It was maybe just a comment. Another comment from Baron Ginger says at Essent Eon, we had two contact center agents in the team part-time. This works very well.
Yeah, that's actually true, right? And that's how I like to position chatbots as well, is to really have them as, kind of a virtual colleague of, if you're building a customer support bot in the customer support team, right? That really helps in positioning it in the right way, where, the bot is not just something that like lives separately and does its own thing. It's part of the team. It needs training. It needs support. It needs some love every now and then, to get the most out of it. And having people that are building the bot integrated with people that are actually providing the customer support is a super good idea to help help the bot being more of a part of that team in some sense.
Yeah. At the end, it's a helper, right? Like a bot.
Exactly.
I've always seen him as a helper and part of the team. Yeah, definitely. So good. Any other questions? Please ask them. And if there are none, then I will just thank you, JJ, very, very much for this great insights, this great presentation. I'm pretty sure that the people now will consider all what you just mentioned while implementing a bot for businesses. So thanks again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
So perfect. Now we're going to have another 15-minute break. See you back here at 12 p.m. for our next session with Frederick Godding, the head of AI at Chatlayer by Sinch. See you in a bit.